Environmental storytelling in video games. Don't know what that is? Sure you do. It's when a game's environment, what the player navigates and sees while playing, functions not just as a place to stand and shoot things, but also as a kind of museum of the game's world, teaching the player its rules and, well, story. For good examples, look to the Bioshock series. These games wrote the modern playbook on environmental storytelling. People still talk about Bioshock 1's Rapture, with good reason. Rapture is a fascinating and complicated setting, but a player can learn a lot about it on their own, just by looking at the advertisements, graffiti, and, corpse placements present throughout each area in this objectivist's Atlantis. These elements teach the player about the city and its inhabitants, often without the need for any direct exposition through traditional dialogue.
Careful now.
You can find details like this in a ton of games. Poking around a game's environment and stopping to wonder why a statue is broken or why a door is locked can lead to really interesting questions and answers. You get to feel a little bit like a detective, and when a game rewards your curiosity with a secret, it's just the best. When you use a game's environment to tell or expand a story, it can be really, really cool. But do you know what I think is even cooler? Using a game's environment to do all of that while also telling the player how they should be playing. Resident Evil 2 Remake is a spooky game that... look, I'll get to Halo ODST in a minute. I promise. Resident Evil 2 Remake is a spooky game, set in a police station full of zombies that can easily overwhelm and kill inexperienced players. However, the game's environment is designed to give the player almost all the information they need to anticipate and engage with enemies. The Raccoon City Police Department's main lobby is brightly lit and full of well-barricaded entrances and exits.
Is anybody here?
A player should feel safe walking around this area, and if they're thinking really hard about these details, they should be able to infer that the lobby has not been overrun by zombies even before fully exploring it. Even if the player is not thinking this hard about the environment they are exploring, they can probably still subconsciously recognize that well-lit means safe because, well, you can see everything. The game's brief prologue has also already set up this unspoken rule of lit-up areas being safe and darker areas being full of danger. This wide-open area the player first visits is quickly contrasted with several different hallway sections that are dark instead of light, and unsecured instead of boarded up. Do I really need to tell you which of these areas has enemies in it? Everything about this hallway screams, approach with caution, and that's exactly what I did the first time I experienced it. I inched around corners, kept my gun loaded and drawn, and when zombies came bursting through windows and doors, I was ready for it. Wait a minute, I sound really lame, right? Like I'm LARPing or something? I mean, it's just a video game. So why am I getting so into it? Well, that's sort of the secret of really good environmental storytelling. It's 100 smaller visual details, sound cues, and camera directions that makes a game really engaging, and hopefully intuitive. You're not supposed to notice it most of the time. You're just supposed to feel it. This brings me to one of my first and favorite experiences with environmental storytelling in games. Thank you for being patient. It's time to talk about Halo ODST. It's 2007, and the team at Bungie has just concluded one of the most critically and commercially successful game trilogies of all time. And now, they have to figure out what to do next with Halo. After 3 games featuring a super soldier charging through hordes of aliens, space zombies, and religious metaphors, the team wanted a change of pace for Halo's second spinoff. ODST was going to be something different, but still use the Halo 3 engine so Bungie could start working on their actual next big project, Halo Reach. Oh, and the game was going to have to come out in only 14 months, due to another cancelled Halo project. Given the circumstances, the Bungie team tried their damnedest to set ODST apart, It's a prequel that doesn't follow or feature Master Chief, who is Halo's poster child. Instead, you play as an orbital drop shock trooper, which is a fancy name for a cannon fodder marine who's good at falling with style. Anyone in Halo without power armor can't really do much against an allegiance of aliens hell-bent on killing all humans. And this spin-off is designed with the ODST's more squishy nature in mind. Your character can't regenerate health and needs to pick up health packs to keep fighting. They also can't dual-wield weapons or use equipment like you could in Halo 3. Halo ODST is also an odd duck of a game when it comes to its structure. At the start of the game, you're playing as the Rookie, an unnamed, silent protagonist who falls from space like an ODST is supposed to, but badly. The events of Halo 2, which is taking place at the same time as ODST, scatter the Rookie and his teammates all over the Covenant-occupied city of New Mombasa. The Rookie takes a nasty blow to the head. For a second time in 5 minutes, actually.
Wake up, Buttercup.
Relax, Rookie. He don't mean nothing. Besides, now's one of those times. Pays to be the strong, silent type.
After crashing in his pod, Rookie wakes up alone in the city without a friendly face in sight. The player is told this is a full 6 hours after the opening scene. And then, they are dropped into Halo's first ever pseudo-open world experience. Alone. Bungie had a bit of a problem with this setup. They wanted to create a moody, noir experience for the player who, as the silent Rookie, explores New Mombasa's desolate streets in search of lost teammates in one of Halo's biggest environments up until that point. But they had taught players over the course of the last 3 games to expect constant waypoints and objective reminders. Often from a literal voice in the player's head, telling them where to go and what to do.
We should show them who they're dealing with.
Head back inside. I'll lead you to it.
Don't let this ring be the end of us, Chief. Come on, Spartan, go, go, go!
Enough!
ODST separates the Rookie and the player from any backup, isolating you on purpose while also asking you to explore a dark and fairly large environment. They then ask you to find 6 small clues to your teammates' whereabouts scattered throughout the city, which trigger more traditional Halo action levels, acting as flashbacks in the narrative. The tone of these Rookie sections is unlike anything found in the rest of the series before or since ODST. That contrast is present within the game too. The flashback levels playing as Rookie's teammates are set mostly during the day, surrounded by help from human AI and with more of a focus on waging war, not exploring the aftermath of a loss. Tools that are absolutely necessary to Rookie's lone wolf experience like night vision and a map are absolutely worthless in most of these levels. As if to illustrate this point, playing as the Rookie is about surviving long enough to find help. His sections are defined by dark streets, ambushes, and a tremendously moody, jazz-inspired score that just hits different. The Rookie does all of this without saying a word, too. He's a silent protagonist, as if to further contrast his sections from those of his teammates, who often talk to themselves or quip at each other.
I'll give up, huh? What if it were you down there?
Just saying. I ain't dead.
You're a piece of work, Romeo.
This shift in environment from levels to pseudo-open world was a big ask for Halo players at the time, who were used to exploring narrow canyons, round arenas, and hallways for most of the series. Fortunately, the Rookie isn't really alone. A payphone rings in an empty courtyard, which is weird because it's 2552 and they still have payphones, but don't worry about that. You answer, and are given this message. This is the Superintendent, an AI developed to help run New Mombasa by doing things like keeping the subways running or changing traffic lights. The Superintendent can't talk, like you. At least not really. But he can do things like turn on sirens and change billboards. and he's going to do so a lot to not so subtly guide the lost rookie through the dangers of a fallen city to find clues about where his squad has gone. It's an oddly comforting experience. And it's pretty effective at pointing you where to go. Vergil, that's the superintendent's other name, acts like a friendly poltergeist, sending messages to the player from beyond the grave of a not quite dead yet city. His presence can be felt everywhere, and is often represented visually by these symbols. They're on the payphone, the cutscenes between levels, and even in commercials for the game before anyone knew what the symbol meant. The payphone isn't even the first time you see his logo. It's on a health station that you are directed to as soon as you first escape your crashed pod. Also, look closely at that symbol. In all of its forms, it's an expressive but simple face with no mouth. Only eyes. Perfect for an AI that uses security cameras to see and can't talk except through short, pre-recorded audio snippets, like this one.
Hello, traveler. Mombasa welcomes you. Anxious? Stressed? Please remain calm. Control circuits now open with pride.
Sometimes to great effect.
Open this door, traitor!
Spay and neuter your pets. All dogs must be kept on leash.
By the prophets, you will pay for your insolence!
Welcome. Access granted.
As a gameplay device, I think the Superintendent is brilliant. A lot of game settings, when done well, can be described as feeling almost like a character in the story. Rapture feels like a character. New Mombasa literally is a character, and he's pissed. The Superintendent has spent the last 24 hours watching the Covenant destroy the city through security cameras, so he's going to do everything he can to help the rookie survive and enact some revenge. Throughout the game, the Superintendent helps the players in several distinct ways. First, he guides the player to the clues hidden throughout the city using things like car alarms, barricades, and billboards. The city controlling tech reminds me a bit of Watch Dogs, except it's in a futuristic city in 2552, not Chicago in 2013. What? The second way the Superintendent helps the player is by calling their attention to audio logs scattered throughout the city. These are also a first for the Halo franchise, and in ODST, they tell the player more about the Superintendent's background through a story about his creator's daughter that occurs prior to the events of the game. I'm not going to go too into this side story in case you want to experience it for yourself, but here's a little sample.
Vergil! Can you hear me? I'm on my chatter, but I'm off the train in Old Mombasa, and...
No parking. Violators will be ticketed and towed.
I know, I can see it. A giant Covenant ship just hanging above the city center. There's a kiosk on the platform. Makupa Station. Meet me there, okay?
I really like this setup because it justifies why the player is wasting time in a war zone hunting for collectibles. Rookie is literally being guided to these audio logs because the Superintendent thinks the stories they tell are important to share. The more of these audio logs the player finds, using the environment for clues, the more the Superintendent trusts Rookie. After a while, the Superintendent will start opening up weapon lockers to help the player further in the ammo-scarce Mombasa streets. It's a reward that feels natural because you earn it as you grow your relationship with Vergil, non-verbally through your actions, picking up the audio logs and killing the intruders in his home. Sadly, a lot of this content can be completely ignored by players. Pressing the D-pad at any point in the campaign gives a player a yellow waypoint pointing your way to the next clue to find. Even though this is technically still the Superintendent communicating with you through your heads-up display, I would find it hard to call this environmental storytelling, and I don't think it's nearly as engaging. The player who chooses to exclusively press the button to get answers really misses out on interacting with Vergil, and might even be confused when he becomes more directly involved with the story in its final 2 chapters. I feel really bad for these players, because they're missing out on a series of narrative and environmental interactions that I think are unique to ODST, not just among other Halo titles, but across the majority of video games. These are the details that make ODST stand out for me. Not a few minor gameplay changes and a significantly weaker hero, but a setting. Artificial, but still alive. Its atmosphere personified, and engaging as hell. As I play, I can imagine Rookie silently thanking his strange robot friend as he keeps moving forward. Alone, but not really.